Thomas Edison once said, I have not failed. I have just discovered 10,000 ways that didn't work. We're going to talk about mistakes, about failure. Just because we have a lot of experience? I don't know why we did this today.
No, we were joking about it while we were prepping this podcast.
This one we can talk about.
This one we can talk about.
Yeah.
Some of the others we got to put a lot more prep into.
90 plus episodes. And finally we have a
we
topic
are an expert in this.
Something about.
No, I do think, though, over the last few weeks, kind of just been a theme of talking to contractors all over, really, about just making mistakes and how do we move on? How do we grow, fail forward kind of mentality. And so, and we also had a listener suggest this episode. So I'm excited to kind of get into maybe hopefully some tips, hopefully some, tools and steps for, hey, how do we make mistakes and move on, move forward, fail forward?
We all make mistakes.
Yep.
It is an unfortunate and probably a very necessary part of life.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's also this feeling that sometimes it's not just mistakes, but there's accumulation of like, oh man, we should have done this differently and that. And then it feels like we're failing because too many mistakes happen. And I know a lot of you guys feel that at various times to varying degrees.
Totally.
I've felt that before too. You just feel like a failure. You're not succeeding at enough things. Mm. And I think today's episode is for you. It's for us. And there's a lot to unpack with mistakes. And I think this episode, we hope that you leave, get through this episode today thinking encouraged, but also realizing like excited about mistakes as opposed to dreading them.
Yeah.
And I think it's a weird mentality, but there's so much here. There's lots of words for mistakes, blunders, screw ups. I mean, like miscalculations, more technical. But errors. But anyway, it's just. But we all know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I think we need to start with a couple of distinctions, though, with today's episode. It's like there's the accidental mistake, like the well-intentioned mistake, and then there's the more or less deliberate sort of criminal mischief type of thing.
Crooked kind of.
Yeah, crooked. Yeah. And I think what we're talking about is the today's more focused towards the unintentional
For sure.
Side of it, where it's like we meant well.
Yeah. You're trying to do the right thing, but we mess up.
Yeah, right. So it's like, it's an error in math. It's a wrong measurement. We forgot to order something. We didn't show up when we were supposed to. This basically we wanted to do the right thing, but it didn't happen. As opposed to like a conscious choice to like defraud somebody or go 120 miles an hour in a school zone. Like
we're not talking to you. You should go to jail.
Well, I think there might be aspects of what we're talking about today that could apply to that scenario, but that's not the thrust of the
jail.
I
won't go straight to jail.
It's just like it's black and white. I mean, you done wrong. You just you did it.
Yeah.
So
sorry, I wasn't in the notes.
I want to lean into this idea that mistakes are necessary and really healthy, actually. And I think there's some pushback to that because I do not like making mistakes at all.
They're uncomfortable.
Do you like making mistakes?
No. I like making people happy. I don't like making mistakes, messing up,
screwing things
disappointing people.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, a little of this is possible. Like, please sign me up for doing perfect. I'd like to do that. More of that.
Yeah, but what I will say is of the things I remember, like stories or, seasons or just things I've gone through.
Like in sports or something?
Yeah, that too. I mean, I remember I was, 13 and I was playing club volleyball and, I'm sure some people listening their kids play sports. But anyways, I was playing club volleyball, travel volleyball, and there's different levels of play, right? Like I can't even remember the names of them now. I just know that open, it's like a term for a certain category of
rather good people
level. A level of the game, and we went to our first like national qualifier, which I know makes sense to very few people. But anyways, we lost every single game, and volleyball is very black and white. It's rally scoring. And it's like, I literally just messed up the set right there, or I hit the ball out of bounds, or like so mistakes happen a lot. I remember my coach always saying, you can't pass a ball with another ball in your hands. There's just things like that. So it's like moving on from mistakes in volleyball, especially. I'm sure there's other sports that are related, but it's like, it's something that I became very comfortable with because it's like, it's glaringly obvious who made the mistake every single time, you know? It's like you hit it out. I mean, it can be shared too. I know it's a team sport still, but it's like two people can't pass the ball at the same time. You know, two people can't pass the ball at the same time. So anyway, but I remember that tournament too. We lost every single game, you know? Wow. But it was like, it's the tournament of all of the tournaments that I went to, of the hundreds that I went to in my childhood, you know, that I remember distinctly. I remember everything about that trip. And we lost every single game, but I think I learned more than I've ever learned in a tournament. Yeah. You know. So anyway, I've come to realize, you know, that mistakes are a part of life. You know, because it's maybe volleyball made me that way. I don't know, but
reminds me of the time where I signed up for a tennis tournament and signed up for the Open, and first couple of games were going really, really competitively. And, you know, and I would just, you know, play some brilliant points and just like, you know, and I was surprising myself, just like, wow, Ben, give yourself a pat on the back. You're playing so good. And didn't win another game after that reflection.
You needed humbled. That's why.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah. Listen, you're arrogant guy. You know, yeah, exactly. Yeah. The proud do get humbled. Yes, but to your point though, these moments though, they stand out.
Yeah.
Because they're learning moments. They're moments where we capture and I think there's an aspect of also we start to learn about ourselves in these moments too, like what we're not capable of doing or whether our weaknesses or shortcomings. And so we realize, oh, wow. Yeah. Actually, I'm not as good as I thought I was. Totally. And I think that the Open lesson was for me of saying, actually, you're playing guys that are way out of your league. And just because you hit a few brilliant points doesn't make you a winner. So you got to be consistent. And so I think it's like
space to level up.
Yeah, exactly. So they expose our blind spots mistakes too. I mean, we start learning our limits. We start discovering. I think mistakes are an essential part of innovation, of leveling up of any kind whatsoever. I think you have to almost reframe a mistake and being like, okay, they're inevitable. We're gonna make decisions that aren't the ideal scenarios. Somebody had once posed the question around a table: can you make an egg a in a shell stand on an end, you know, without anything holding the egg up? And, you know, and everyone's looking, holding the egg and trying to figure out how to make it stand on end. And a few people are like, no, you can't. And the guy smashes the egg on the table and says, there it is. You're standing up. And his comment was, you know, and they're all like, yeah, you know, like, that isn't right. You know, he's like, yeah, it's easy when someone shows you how.
Right.
And I think that's a part of mistakes that's huge. Like when you've not done something before, you don't realize what's involved with doing it or not doing it. Of like you know, if you're at a professional level of sports, of like the amount of commitment and effort to go into it. But that's the fun of life. That's part of the chase. And so learning to accept mistakes is a big piece of this as well.
Absolutely.
And I think if we're not comfortable with mistakes, we essentially just guarantee mediocrity. We're just going to be average because no hits, no runs, no errors.
No, you're right. Yeah, you're never going to be top producer, top whatever, you know, in your
because we never leaned into the uncomfortable nature of mistakes. We never pushed ourselves beyond what we could already do.
That's right. Yeah.
And so,
well, and I think a lot of our audience, like, they are feeling this more than most people because it's like a lot of you are entrepreneurs at heart and you're doing hard things and you're creating something, you're innovating on something. Like, yes, there's other, you know, framing companies, you know, but it's like you're building it yourself. You know, a lot of our audience is doing that. And so I think back to your innovation point, mistakes, 100% of the time you will have mistakes.
Yes.
You know? I mean, hopefully not 100% of the time, but 100% of our listeners will have mistakes. You know, we will all make mistakes.
100% of the time.
100% of the time and 100% of you. This is so encouraging.
So depressing. Yes. I do want to make sure that we call out, though, that not all mistakes are necessarily equally valuable. There's some mistakes where they're just almost irrecoverable. Like you can make such an error in judgment, such a catastrophic safety failure where somebody could die because of a poor choice.
Right.
And so I think the goal here is to make micro mistakes and say, let's catch catastrophic things before they things leaning towards before they become that thing.
Yeah.
Where the small mistake of being like, man, we should have been wearing a harness on the 3 foot off the ground becomes not the 300 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
And so I think, those things can't be tolerated. We can't just stuff happens.
Yeah, totally.
People fall off ladders. I mean, instead of learning from the micro mistakes, learning from the adjustments along the way. So I think there's a distinction there. Not all mistakes are equally valuable.
I think the repeated mistakes side of things too is like if you're making the same mistakes over and over and over again, you're actually not growing, you're not learning, you're not reflecting on that. And so obviously we'll speak to some of the how-to soon, but it's like they're not all equally valuable. Like repeated mistakes, you're just not learning, you're not leveling up. And so I think that's something different than what you're saying in terms of high stakes mistakes. High stakes mistakes. Wow.
See what you did there.
I didn't do that on purpose.
Mistakes emerge from a lot of times from the unknown. Some of the mistakes that I can look back at of just not knowing what I didn't know. And so therefore, when you're doing something you've never done before and suddenly like, man, we messed up.
Yep.
And I think there's a certain level of like, when we talk about mess up, it's sort of like with a child. If you have a child and the first time they do something, you would expect sort of mediocrity of just, barely passing or not passing of like that, it's like my boys have just got into paper airplanes in a huge way in the last month and a half, and so there are thousands of paper airplanes strewn all over the place. Which I have to make them go out and like, hey, go clean up the yard because there's hundreds of paper airplanes all over the place. But which records, speed, distance, height, and all of these things that they're building, and this YouTube channel, that YouTube channel, and they're just obsessed with paper airplanes. In fact, awesome. The other day they were, sassing my wife, and she was like, you know what? You do that one more time, and I'll take your paper airplanes away. And they did naturally.
Severe consequence.
And so it was like, and my third oldest, he's like, but mommy, what do we do? I'm like, so unfair. Should have thought about that ahead of time. Yeah. But all that said, though, of like that's an essential part. Their first paper airplane didn't fly
very well, or at all.
Like they're 100 and something odd feet that they're at now.
Wow.
And so I think there's this essential of like back to the whole Thomas Edison thing. He didn't look at mistakes as failure. He would view the aggregate of all of those situations as like, we tried 10,000 times and we gave up, then we failed.
Yeah.
But when we built it, when we were building paper airplanes, the first one flew 3 feet and the second flew, 10 feet. And the third
we did way better.
Exactly. Like we failed when we gave up. Yeah. We failed when we stopped trying.
Yeah, that's good.
And as opposed to the effort of trying, the micro mistakes along the way or the little adjustments we need to make. That's how we learn. So I think that's when we're doing things we haven't done before, we should assume, don't assume things will go well. Assume things won't.
Yes.
And so the expectations, a big mentality part of things. Mistakes also arrive from wrong assumptions. I mean, this is huge. Of just like, well, we thought that would work, and boy, did it not. I remember the time when I was a kid, my dad, we had an artesian well, which is essentially a spring, which you put a wellhead into and you pump water out of it. Sounds cool. So, yeah, it was awesome. It was a really, really cool, very clean spring. Yeah. It was like a 100-gallon-a-minute spring. And so this wellhead, so the well pump went out. Something broke. Something rusted out. And so he went down there, and so he thought, well, it's 50-degree water, whatever it is, in a spring. So he got some of those waders, like, and he thought, well, it's a one-time use thing, so I'll just buy some cheap ones. So he gets in the water. He gets in the water with his waders.
Had a hole in them,
and it ripped.
Oh, dang it!
And he's like, well, I'm already here. I'm just gonna go with it. And he barely get out of the water. He's frozen to death down there for like half an hour in cold water. Here's an assumption, though. Yeah. Obviously, funny story, but nonetheless, there's an assumption of like.
And he lives.
Yeah, right. He's still alive. He's good. Oh yeah. Thank you for
cold plunge. Yeah. Before cold plunge was a thing.
Yes. Boy, we should just got the videotape out. We could have made so many great YouTube videos back in the day. But it was a wrong assumption, and I think not all of them are, an entertaining outcome. Sometimes they really hurt, but sometimes we just say, well, we're going to need 100 2x4s, and we need 200, and so now we're out the other 100 2x4s. So mistake.
It's good.
External pressure is a huge mistake maker, meaning I need this done yesterday. I needed, there's customer demands. There's internal company, like I got to make my boss happy or I got to make myself happy. Like those external pressures. Just
then you're rushed and you're not even thinking clearly
causers, too. Yeah, schedules and
True. It's gonna get done when it gets done.
Of course, that doesn't work either. But my grandfather would always point out I don't know how true the story is, but Michelangelo, Sistine Chapel. He's up there on a scaffolding on his back. Yeah, you've seen it. That's right. What was it like?
Pretty amazing.
It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Except I was kind of you're not supposed to take pictures in there, and I was noticing people taking pictures, and I'm pretty black and white, so I'm like back to that jail thing. You need to go to jail. You get kicked out of here.
Yeah.
So they were kind of distracting me.
Yeah, you're like, look at all these rule breakers. You're taken away from this art. Yeah. One of the, I guess the common, people walking through, seeing him on a scaffold working on for years, or however long it took him to paint this thing. I think he spent several years painting.
It was a long time.
It's huge. Different scenes in the Sistine Chapel, and his comment was, "When will it be done? Well, when it's finished."
Yeah, exactly. I think that is true. I think that is exactly what he said.
So there's an aspect of artistry, and there's a certain level you can't rush it. Paint's got to dry. You can't sand
Right.
things, but before it's dry. Like there's an
Drywall's
element of
got to
like
be ready to plug in.
exactly.
Yeah, right.
One complete process at a time.
Yep.
Let's not rush it. Let's not make mistakes by pushing something so hard where we break it.
Yes.
So what else what other sources of mistakes?
I mean, I think just carelessness, but I think a lot of what you just mentioned, like the pressures and things, I think that kind of causes you to be a little bit more like emotional about what's going on and causes you to make mistakes because of just carelessness, or you're being rushed, or you're distracted, or, some of those kinds of things I think can cause.
The care less. So just be like, it's just the flippant kind of like, well, we'll see what happens kind of thing. Or, we won't, I've started to believe in, I don't know if it's this way for you guys as well, but there's a certain level of, and it's probably changed. It's probably evolved a lot, but there's this level of kind of like flippant disregard for safety that a lot of guys, I'm a tough guy, I don't need a hard hat.
That's true.
I've seen multiple, even with kids, where a number of years ago had some kids over to the house and forcing them to wear, helmets when they're riding their bicycles. One of them flips off the bike, cracks the helmet. You imagine what would happen to her head if, flying down a hill, and, like these things save lives. You can't be, and I think there's an aspect of kind of like tough guy, like, I don't need gloves, look at these bad boys, we can handle it,
7 fingers. I'm just kidding.
Exactly. So, carelessness is a big piece of mistakes for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
You bring up the emotions. I think it's really important to dwell on, or to really discuss, because mistakes are not just about what happened, but how they make you feel. Mistakes sometimes feel way worse depending on what the result of it is, like who calls you out on it.
Totally.
I've had jobs where you did the exact same thing, but then the net result was one person said, yeah, it was pretty good. No problem. Another person's like, whoa, like this is not right. I remember having somebody call me out on not returning their phone call. I've probably shared this story before, but he was livid that I did not return his phone call in a timely manner.
Yeah.
And it was over something that I just remember, like, I don't really even owe this guy anything. I'm just, I just didn't call him back in time.
Yeah.
It was like a day and a half later, and he was like, you asked, he just gave me the riot act, And I remember just thinking to myself, like, obviously felt very unfair. But at the same time, I captured a lesson from it. Of just being like, that's how it felt to him.
Yeah.
But there's an emotion to me on that. I'm feeling a certain way as a response to that. And, mistakes can be demoralizing, particularly when you're like, man, I messed up.
Yeah. It reminds me of early on when we were working together. Like I would work with the team on a project or something like that, and then bring it to you. And what would you say? I don't know. You'd say something like, well, it's, pretty good, whatever. I don't know what you would say. And then I'm like, oh, it's garbage. Like, let's just throw it out. It feels personal. It feels like we missed the mark. Feels like, and back to my black and white nature, in that. I think it depends on who you're
I think
to
I was, it would be the kind of project where you put a ton of effort into it with the team, and I'd look at it and say, well, here's where the miss is in all of that. And it feels like we completely missed. It's kind of your perspective. And I think, right. I think I'm seeing like it's 80% right, 90% right, and I think it could be improved upon. And you're thinking, man, we just completely
start over,
completely
whiffed. In the trash.
Yeah, be honest, Ben. You hate it. Yeah.
Don't try to make me feel good.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. Yeah. I remember as a kid, I really try to be cautious of what we share on the podcast, just as far as stories and about who we talk about and stuff. And this is 30 years ago, where I knew somebody that was involved. I don't know the exact particulars, nor should we share them, but essentially he was driving a vehicle and his mother died, and he couldn't recover from that.
Yeah.
And he was just one of these people that life was just meaningless to him, and he just struggled all the time. And I remember feeling as a teenager, just feeling like, just felt so sorry for the guy.
Yeah.
And I would try to befriend him and try to, but the mistake was so demoralizing to him that he couldn't recover from it.
Yeah.
And I don't know the particulars, but nonetheless, I bring that up because I think maybe not to that extreme, but mistakes often bring us to the point of inaction, where it's like whether it can bring us to vice, it can bring us to the point of just not caring about things that we should care about. Bringing mistakes home from work, and like where your family doesn't get the best of you because you're dwelling on the things that didn't go right that day. This mentality is there. It's just the emotional aspect of a mistake. And we're going to get to more of like how to do something about that. But we just want to lean into this more. Emotions are deceiving. Like they're just feelings.
Yeah.
They're just saying, hey, I mean, I feel like rubbish because somebody chewed me out today.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you feel like are like some of the wrong responses maybe to mistakes?
I think there's dwelling on a mistake and I've tended to do this in the past of thinking of the what ifs of like, if we did this differently, that would have been the outcome of like playing all the different scenarios in your mind of like, this should not have happened had this been done.
Right.
Which I would justify that because I'm thinking like that could be the learning aspect of it of like, if we did this differently, then we wouldn't have had that result, which
don't
can
move
be,
on too quickly, but like don't dwell too long. Kinda.
It can be healthy to reflect. But when it becomes a loop, is just being like, over and over and over again, that's a wrong response because now you're just dwelling on something that happened and then you're just playing it over and over again. It's robbing from you. You're not learning things. You're not growing from it. It's just stealing from you.
Yeah.
You brought up moving on too quickly, like the, stuff happens kind of a, mentality of like,
Yep.
Mistakes will be mistakes, like, I'm not perfect, like
that's not great either.
That's not great either.
Yeah.
I think where it's maybe you can process a mistake very quickly and say, man, I made a mistake, and you can move on in 30 seconds, but I think moving on without capturing the lesson, without interrogating what happened, what's going on here, without reflection, is a mistake in of itself.
That's a big miss.
It's a miss. Yeah. Blaming, it's not my fault. I think where this particularly shows up is where most problems are never one party's entire fault.
Yeah.
Had it been for my guy that showed up to do this, did this differently, and had I done this differently, and had the customer done this differently, we would have had a great result. It's not just like you screwed up. It's just being like, any type of thing. It's communication. It could be, like had we talked about that ahead of time and had we had that lined up ahead of time, we would have had a different result.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times we just look at the 90% of the problem that's not ours.
Yeah.
And just like they messed up.
Yeah. Two sides to every story, kind of.
Sometimes I'll look at reviews before I do business with a company. One of them was yesterday was I was looking for a birthday present for my 9-year-old, and one of the the reviews on there of like these terrible people and they would respond to every review very defensively. Here's the facts and but at the same time you felt like, hey, these people have a lot of negative reviews, but they actually really care in the way they address them. But I'm thinking, when you have like 15 one-star reviews, you just like, anyway, where was it going with that? I think it's like the blaming piece of it of I think where I wanted to go with that is capturing the element of responsibility we have with it is the right response, as opposed to just blaming it all on other people, which is the temptation of like, well, I can't help stupid. Like, you picked the wrong thing out and I put the wrong thing in. It's like, well, you put the wrong thing in. You picked it out, which caused me to do that. But at the same time, maybe I could have asked the question of like owning the responsibility of like, as it relates to you, of like, it's not taking on false responsibility for something you didn't do, but at the same time, owning the piece that you can do. I think we were thinking about this earlier too, of just like people tend to protect themselves from hurt. Because they feel like if we owned up to something, that people would trample on that. Like if I was truly humble and really just said, man, Dave, I messed up, they would just be like, rip you to shreds and take advantage of you. The vulnerability we're just not comfortable with. Yeah.
Or like you're fired or you're whatever. I mean, like just go to the radical scenario.
Yeah. And so humility does feel like vulnerability, and probably is.
It is, to an extent, for sure.
Yeah. I found though that in myself and in other people, of like the grace that I extend to other people when they are in a spot of like owning up to what, I just had this has happened so many times. So just somebody saying, oh man, I'm sorry I didn't meet your expectations on that. We should have done that differently. That's not a big apology, but at the same time, it makes you feel like, man, that guy's really trying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, man, we could have done things differently, and I'm sorry we failed you.
Yeah.
That's a big apology.
It
you know
is.
what I mean? I mean, I had somebody say that to me last night, just being like, we could have done things differently, man, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, and I think it invites grace into the situation too. Yeah. Like just the other party is like, oh, they're human again, and like humans make mistakes. I make mistakes,
right. Well, I'm thinking that to myself too. Like right there with you, buddy. Yeah. I mean, I've done that too.
For sure.
Like I'm not thinking to himself, what a moron.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Because the defensiveness is gone. Yeah. It gets,
I think the reverse of it though, is when somebody does not get the point, when they are in the spot where they're like, no, it is not my fault. And they will not acknowledge any responsibility. Then people go towards, not only you wrong 10% of the situation, you are 100% of the 150% of the problem, and not only that, we'll make you pay and all this stuff. I think that's the other response of not having humility in the situation.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. We're not going to pay you a cent.
Just dig your heels in kind of thing. Okay. So what's the right way? How do we move on from mistakes? What would you tell the guy that's
you were talking about the emotional aspect of mistakes, where you have certain feelings about it. Sometimes that's even where the mistake even kind of sources itself, of just being like, man, I feel like we didn't do the right thing here. We need to interrogate that and understand what really happened. Is something really wrong? How wrong? Was it because the outcome wasn't right, or is it that we actually did something wrong?
Yeah, good point.
Sometimes it's like, let's figure out what happened here. Let's just take a moment, take the emotional piece away. What happened here? And sometimes you need this with a friend, or just being like somebody or a mentor, somebody that you can trust. To not just like, bro, you're never at fault. Like, you don't need that guy telling you. You don't need somebody to just stroke your ego. You need somebody that can actually question you.
Yeah. Well, and you need to go into the conversation seeking advice, not trying to prove that you didn't make a mistake.
Like, hey, this person last week, can you believe it? That's not how you should be going down the conversation.
It's like somebody who wants to get a divorce, who just goes around to all their divorced friends because they want to, you know what I mean? Like, they just want people to agree with them. Like, that's not what we're saying. And who to talk to.
Yeah. And when you do challenge them, they're like, no, you don't get my point. I want your affirmation. I don't want you to challenge you want to be able to express to that person, I want you to be able to challenge me on this. I want you to tell me I'm wrong if you feel that I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to what degree I am. So I think a big piece of that is, who did the mistake affect? Was it just you? Of like, this cost you? I mean, that's a difference than, did it cost your team? Did it cost your company? Did it cost your customer, others? I mean, like, who did it affect? Who was involved in the mistake? I think there are certain mistakes we should own, like workmanship, like poor quality, just in the sense of like, that's obviously done wrong.
Yeah.
That is crooked, obviously crooked. Fix it,
Right.
You missed a measurement, the board's too short. It's not up to somebody else's, you got to own it and just do it. Just got to fix it. Not following specifications. If you have an opportunity to correct those things. I mean, these are obviously, these are things that are just, mistakes clearly to own. Some of them that are just a little bit more nuanced, a little bit, harder to identify, would be the ones that are just mistakes that were a combination of, well, the architect specified that. I misread the specification, which disagreed with the plan. I assumed this, and we put that, and we also made, there's kind of a lot more nuance, a lot harder to identify, well, who really is the problem here. Misunderstandings,
Right.
I mean, so many comical misunderstandings happen, in hindsight. In the moment they suck, but
lack of communication and things like that. I think that, man, you can sure get through a lot if you're able to communicate effectively and proactively. We have episodes on that as well. So.
Yeah. There are some mistakes that are outcomes. Clearly everyone says, hey, a mistake was made, but they really aren't your fault. And sometimes people try to make them your fault, but, they said, your customer clearly specified this was the countertop they want installed, and that was installed. And next thing you know, they're saying, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Change it out. It's your fault. Like, well, it's not, it's really not, like that was what they wanted, and they verified it. And there could be more nuance to it where you had more ownership on it, but nonetheless, if that's what they picked out and that's what they got put in, it's not yours. Or unclear directions, or, there's a lot of things where someone said, I want that there, and you put it there. And next thing you know, you're like, well,
it's
really, right. You want it changed. So you shouldn't take that on yourself and feel like, and also, as quickly as you need to be able to accept that mistakes happen yourself and be able to say it's inevitable, also extend that grace to other people. You will make mistakes. Other people will screw up as well.
True.
And to be just as forgiving as you'd want to be, other people accepting of you as well. Of like, hey, stuff happens. I get it. Send you a quick bill, and you can fix. You can pay for it. Just like if I made a mistake, we'd recover it.
Yeah.
And so
that's good.
I think for you guys that just feel really like you're hard on yourself, you need to set some boundaries to what you're hard on yourself about. You can't be a hero. You can't be perfect. I can't be perfect as much as I want to be. And that wanting to be perfect is a source of a lot of like robbing us of peace, as opposed to being like accepting I can't be perfect as much as I want to be. I want to be better. I want to learn. I want to grow, but
doesn't mean
I'm going to disappoint people.
Yeah,
I'm going to make errors that cost other people, that hurt other people. and I'm going to try to do my best to make them right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good. Okay. So I make a mistake. What do I do?
You want to talk about next
Practical.
steps?
I want to talk about practical.
Well, we talked about accepting it.
Yeah.
I think there's a certain well of like, what's done is done. It happened. Like being able to be, and not be, I mean, it's hard. I mean, so many times, like, even with kids, you'd be like, no, like you almost want to make sure that they understand that like that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And it's just like, no, it did happen though.
Yeah.
And so being able to accept a mistake of like, okay, now that's not the question anymore, is not how to undo, unless it's a computer. It's like, where did my stuff go? Yeah, undo. Don't dwell on it. Don't get in the if only blame loop, or don't be fragile. I guess there's this element of like, we have to move on to the next step.
Yeah.
And just be like, okay,
keep
accept
one step in front of the other. Yeah.
Yep. I've also found that through a series of circumstances where things went profoundly badly in for a certain, like moment of just feeling overwhelmed, in certain weeks where it's just like, I have this pressure, this problem, and it feels almost being like, we're late with this. We got to do this. I'm letting other people down. Pressure, intense pressure, where you guys feel it. I mean, you guys know what it's like, where you just have this expectation on yourself where you feel like you are failing in a massive way. And the next thing the kind of the relief in all of that is, no matter how bad it is, there's always a tomorrow, and it's probably not as bad as you think it is. Yeah. I remember thinking through myself in one of those moments of being like, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen here? Sometimes you think about, well, I lose my business. I have to, all my people quit, and I have to go start over again. Yeah, believe in yourself. You can find another job. You can start. I mean, like, that's the worst thing that could happen. I mean, like, that's not bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
You're right.
At the same time, you don't want that to happen, but at the same time, like, there's still a tomorrow.
Yeah.
Life goes on, and then the other thing about that too is people extend way more grace than you think they ever will. I mean, I've had so many moments where you're just like, man, I'm sorry, we messed up. And people are like, it's okay, we'll work with you. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, thank you.
Totally.
That's good. I think you can recover. Life goes on. Making sure as a part of like action steps on mistakes, as well as not to, what's the level of responsibility I had in that? What's the level of responsibility that others had in it? And kind of placing the right weight of responsibility in the right places is key.
Well, and then, I mean, what does that look like? If let's just say there's multiple people, is it, hey, can we sync on this? How can we, have a conversation about how that went down and how we can make it right? Like, is that how you'd recommend? Like, okay, if it's multiple parties that are involved, like, either how can we prevent that from happening again? Like, some kind of action plan, I think, can be even created from, if multiple people are involved.
Yeah. I would recommend in a scenario where there's shared blame like that, if you can get I like the idea of getting the players involved together. I think where I would start with that is making sure we all agree that there was a problem. Yeah. Of just being like, hey, we let this customer, let's say it's an internal conversation. You and I are working together. We let somebody down somehow collectively. Both of us have shared blame in it. Yep. We get together and we say, okay, do we agree? I mean, like, this is what happened, right? Yeah. And then we'd be like, yep, and then it'd be like, the first step for me as leading the conversation is, well, here's where I let you down. I should have had this done by this deadline. I let you down. I should have had that done here. And it invites you into it of being like, yeah, and I promised you I would do this part of it, and that didn't happen. Yeah. And it'd be like, and it's kind of like troubleshooting together. And if you have a culture of being able to accept mistakes as well, like, we're all going to make them, and how we deal with them is where it's at, not the fact of whether they happen or not. I think that's where, somebody else, I think we also, in a scenario where somebody else is kind of like, no, it wasn't my fault, like I think you have to almost interrogate from a standpoint of, well, would you expect somebody else to behave like you behaved in that situation? Like, would the outcome you generated be acceptable? Sometimes how I have to think about it. That's good. Because we don't all think introspectively. We tend to think worse of others and better of ourselves. Yeah, that's true. Like, what, somebody cuts you off on the road, you don't think about all the people you cut off. It's just like, what a moron. Look at that guy. License out of a Cracker Jack box, take his license away, lock him up, break his tires. I mean, like, people think that way, instead of being like, this guy just did the same thing himself 30 seconds ago. True. Yeah. I had read a story of somebody that essentially just weed eating his yard. Yeah. And he gets hit by a car and dies, Jeez. I bring that story up because there's certain aspect of life where something's going to happen, an insurance policy, they call it like acts of God, or, just like, where did that come from? Like, just out of nowhere, something happens and you're just like, who could have foresaw that?
Crazy acts.
And I think not that we should be dismissive of those kinds of things, but at the same time, it's like life can be that way.
Right.
With the best of intentions, stuff can happen and you're like, oh, man, we're trying our best and bam, hit us out of nowhere. So I think, was something preventable, or is it just like one of those things that, is there a lesson to capture here?
Yeah, that's good.
What about process and checklists and things like that? I remember, this has been a theme of our show, but like, it's very easy in the moment to say, man, we should have done better, have this great emotional experience, the come to God moment.
Yeah. Well, I think you just forget about it the next day,
right,
if you don't actually document it, or like if it is something that can be prevented, like you're talking about, if it's something that there is a lesson to learn, or like something you could have done better, or your team could have done better to improve on. I think that's just where you come back to your processes and you just adjust them, like, or you add a step, or I don't know. I think there's some things where you're going to have to create checklists like from scratch for mistakes that are made, and some to where it's like you can just tweak some of your processes. But I do think that it's like getting it documented and actionable,
right,
to where it's like you actually remember it. Like, because we like to forget bad things too, right? Like
so
we
true.
don't, I don't want to remember we all do remember vaguely mistakes that are made, things like that. But like, I think if you're actually going to spend some time reflecting on it in the moment, man, just take the extra 5 minutes to create a quick checklist and add it to your process, so that way it's like, hey, let's try to keep getting better. Let's prevent that from happening again. And how are we going to do that? By creating a checklist or having an action. It's going to happen less if you have a checklist. Less mistakes are going to happen.
When you're saying that, Casey, it just is, I think one of the things that stands out on changes of any kind in habits or process, the mistakes I've made in trying to implement them with my team has been having a casual conversation about, hey, we messed up here. Here's what we'd like to do better. And just assuming everyone's going to run with that without any accountability down the road to it. So
what does that mean for you?
One thing we found really helpful is to put follow-up reminders on our task list in 2 weeks to kind of revisit something. Like, how are we doing with that now?
Yeah.
Hey, we decided this is the new process. Is everyone following it? Because habits are powerful, both good and bad.
They are.
And if we have we always did it this way, and boss doesn't really care. If we don't prioritize it, nobody else will.
Yep.
And so I think that's, as a part of leading a team, if something really matters, high-end job, carpenter swinging a hammer by my, freshly installed cabinets, with those rough, tool pouches on. It's like, well, I'm seeing a mistake about to happen, and it happens, something gets scratched and we have to go replace it.
Right.
And now from there on, we're saying, okay, well, there's multiple aspects of what we could do about that. I can go talk to my carpenter and tell him, listen, I don't want any hammers or tool pouches near any of these, cabinets.
Just coming.
Or we could also take another step further and say, well, when we get done installing those cabinets, we're going to put protective barriers in front of them because we know the electrician's going to be in there or whoever, you know what I mean? So there's things we can do both from a training standpoint and a protection standpoint. It's multifaceted.
Yep.
And then making sure it happened, because everyone else is, a week later, everyone's right back to swinging hammers.
Right. Yeah. But unless you adjust your process of, hey, we're going to put barriers around it, then it's not getting done.
It's not getting done. Yeah. And if it's not verified that it's going to get done, we can't make assumptions that it's going to get done.
For sure.
Yeah. So obviously we've talked a lot about like just getting through the mentality of like being able to accept a mistake. Okay, it happened. It's done. And, understanding is a part of that mentality. We can recover from mistakes. Mistakes are good. They're healthy. We're going to make them. Like we need to have that perspective of like, I'm eating humble pie and that's good because that's making me better.
Yeah, that's good.
And then, and then we're like, okay, let's make sure that we're not taking more responsibility or less responsibility than we should in the situation. Okay, we understand our role in it. We understand where we screwed up and where we didn't.
Yep.
And then, we understand, okay, there was a preventable aspect of this. Here's the action plan. Here's how we make sure this doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
And then we're like, okay, what about the past? What's done's done, but what do we do about it?
Yeah.
How do we make it right? This is the age-old question. And I think you have people still, trying to solve this of crimes from hundreds of years ago. They're trying to justify or rectify, make right, right. Like on descendants of, slaves or something, well, what we're trying to rectify an evil of the past
right.
with, some sort of resolution. And sometimes there's just nothing fair to be done about some things, true. There's just, and it's also, we need to understand what we're trying to fix too, in the sense of if it was a workmanship issue, Well, the customer might be like, well, you're the one that screwed it up, and I'm not going to go have you back in here screwing more things
I
up.
don't
And so
believe
get
that you
off my
can fix
job.
it.
Yeah, which can happen.
Totally.
And at
Hard to
that
come
point,
back
you're
on.
like, well, I don't know monetarily how we make this right, but maybe there's a way we can. But more often than not, I've discovered that it's not quite just about dollars and cents. People want to be understood.
Yeah.
They want to be able to just you to take ownership of something as well, of like, we should have done something different, and that's not the way something to be done. And here's where I'm at. Here's my position in a not a defensive way, but just being able to explain, even from a dollars and cents standpoint, if like, this is what I've got in your job. This is what this is how I think what do you think? This, it's a negotiation. It's kind of like laying the cards on the table, owning what you can as a problem and saying, here's how I think we could make this fair, giving them agency into it. Pete Oakes shares a story of the time when, I believe the exact details might not get exactly right. Yeah. But the gist of it is he acquired a bank, and that bank had essentially made some deceptive or he had legal liability that he was carrying that he didn't know when he made that acquisition. So here he is sitting on top of the world basically until he gets hit with a lawsuit. And he realized this would just ruin him. This lawsuit would just take everything he had and then some. And he realized he's talking to his lawyer, let's fight this thing, let's do the right thing. And his lawyer's like, you don't have a chance. Like, you are so buried. Yeah. And so he went to the person that sued him, and he said, I got on my knees, and I said, I'm begging you, let me out of this lawsuit. And the guy said, he listened, and he said, yeah, he had just became a Christian like a week before that. Wow. And he said, well, I want to do the fair thing here too. And he said, well, I don't, let's go to our pastor and have him mediate this disagreement between the two of us. The next thing you know, they have something that's equitable for both parties. He's back in business. But that moment of humility of saying, I know we screwed up here, but I'm begging you to help me, to be, and it invites that other person, like, I'm not trying to ruin you. I'm like, trying to ruin make the other guy pay is not what the point was. It was the fact that nobody listened, nobody owned it. And this bank did him wrong, and he wanted to make them pay for it. For sure. And he's like, I had nothing, it's acknowledging the responsibility. Like, I own this bank, and yes, you can ruin me, but at the same time, I'm asking you not to, is what I got from this story. Yeah, it's good. And I think there's an element which I think is just valuable to all of us, is just being able to accept responsibility. And sometimes we can't make it right. And just owning that too. Like, I know there's nothing I can do about this, or maybe there's something I can. What can you do here? And asking for mercy, essentially. So good. Yeah.
But humble.
And humble. Yeah. And
it's about as humble as it gets.
On your knees, begging. Yeah, just like, please, please, let me out of this,
Yeah. But some things come to that level of like, hey, I'm ruined if not, Yeah.
And I've had to eat humble pie like that. I've had those conversations with somebody, like, getting into a contract with with somebody and saying, listen, this is where I'm at. I want to do the right thing, but I can't. Yeah. Can you help me? Can you let me out of it? Yeah. And then being like, okay, let's work something out. And that's what life's about. It's not about making other people pay. It's not about, but in a situation where we're defensive and we won't own anything as a mistake, then you will get dished full portion of vengeance, essentially, by the people you plus won't make right. Probably. Yeah, right. Yeah. Probably some plus some. Yeah. Yeah. It's good. Yeah. Yeah. As we sort of wrap up this episode, I think there's just a few key points just to make sure that you guys walk away from. I think number one, just to stress, is humility. We will never reach perfection as hard as we try. That should be our goal. But we will make mistakes. It's a beautiful part of being human. Yeah. Like even with our spouses or kids, of just being able to say, I messed up, I'm sorry. It's a beautiful moment. Just the makeup, the love, that's just something to your heart to have somebody else love you, even being imperfect. Though you mess up, it's just a beautiful thing. Absolutely. There's an acceptance. Mistakes will happen. We have to accept it. It's how, it's really how we deal with it that separates the men from the boys, really. Yeah. It's just kind of like, and mentality. I'm like, how do we approach it? Mistakes are opportunities that reframe it. Yeah. Mistakes shouldn't crush us. They're not failures. You're not, and even when we feel like the mistake caused a failure, in the sense of like the string of mistakes caused the business to fail, it's not over yet. Yeah. Because we had an opportunity to grow. Think of them as, improvement, development. Like, it's how we learn. It's how we, it's how you watch your kids ride the bicycle. It's like they're going to fall, skin their knees, get back up, get back on it.
Yeah. I think that mentality piece is huge. It's like, what is the self-talk? What is it that you're like actually like dwelling on or pondering? Like what's going on in your mind What are the stories you're telling yourself? You know, I think that's huge because it's like if you can actually reframe those into like, oh, I just suck. I made another mistake. Like, I'm always constantly making mistakes. I'm like self-fulfilling prophecy a little bit of like, hey, you know, if you're in the dumps like that and it's like everything is, you know, victim mindset, I guess, then you're gonna have a really hard time like actually like seeing mistakes as an opportunity for growth. And so if you can really kind of shift that mindset, it might take time.
Flipping it to here's an opportunity for me to grow as opposed to I just screw up, I'm so terrible.
Yes.
I suck so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah, because now we're saying I'm spending all my mental energy not dwelling on the mistake. I'm focusing all my energy on how do I get better the next time.
Yeah.
That's why the most accomplished people are the ones that are saying, well, I'm going to let that one, like a water off a duck's back. You know, it just never stays there.
Right.
No matter if it's, you know, 20 degrees below zero in the pond, like they're, you know, in the water and out, you know, it doesn't stick. They're not cold.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect them. It's Teflon.
Yep.
Yeah. There's an aspect of learning. Capture the lessons. Don't let them slide by. Mistakes are just such valuable moments to just learn something. Somebody once said the definition of stupid is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So just let's not be stupid.
Don't be stupid.
There's an old commercial where this guy Bob shows up and says, you know, hi everyone, this is Bob. I'm Bob. I'm stupid. And you know, people are, oh no, Bob, you're not stupid. And he said, well, let me tell you, you know, we had this, you know, the .com boom. We had the website up, and you know, millions of hits on the website, and then it crashed. And I was like, well, what happened? He's like, well, we didn't tell anybody we had all this traffic coming, and you know, the site crashed. And Bob, it's so stupid. I think there's moments of sympathy, but also thinking, nah, you had that one coming. You know, like you should totally have known that. So I think we don't want to push our luck with things like that too. We want to capture the lessons so we don't look like that idiot just keeps beating his head against the wall. You know who we're talking about.
Yeah,
you know, you know what I mean? Like we all have somebody we know where we're just like, well, man, you feel sorry for them, but like, why are they beating their head against the wall? They're not capturing the lessons. So capture the lessons and prevent it. You know, you see there's the proverb, you know, the prudent man foresees the evil and hides himself. You know, in sense of like, you see it coming, so do something about it. Yeah. And I think that's the aspect of being better. Obviously, never reaching perfection, but getting better involves, let's not make the same mistake twice. So good. It was bad enough the first time. Yeah. Like, I don't want to do it twice.
So painful.
Yeah.
Let's learn from it. Let's have less pain.
So welcome to the Mistake Club, you know, where we all make mistakes and we learn from them, we grow from them, we get better. Yep. You're in great company.
Absolutely.
Mistake maker number 1 and number 2.
Yeah.
And we're still making mistakes and still growing and learning.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Let's keep getting better, you guys.